Hello, everyone, and welcome back to season 3 of Taking Stock Live, where we do just that. We take stock with some of the most inspirational and exciting thought leaders in the retail and CPG place and space. And today is certainly no exception. I cannot wait for this conversation. This is a leader that I have the privilege to work with closely, Andy Ruben, who is just incredible. I have the pleasure of sitting on the board of his company, Trove. And Andy has a long and really remarkable career in the retail and CPG place. I think he was the first chief sustainability officer at Walmart. Now he's the executive and chairman of Trove. And for those of you who don't know Trove, you will by the end of this episode. They are really this incredible re-commerce platform that is powering re-commerce for companies like Lululemon and REI and Patagonia. How could I forget them? So Andy, just a huge welcome to you.
Oh my gosh, thank you. This is fantastic.
I'm sure I missed a million things in my intro of you. Any big ones you want to make sure I hit on?
No, let's jump in.
Okay. So usually what we do here, the first question, because it's such an avid retail audience, is we find out if people had a first job in retail and what it was. So can you share yours?
Yes. And it's a little bit of an odd one. Well, I'm going to call it retail. It was more service. So probably when I was 8 or 9 years old, it was, I don't know how many of your listeners remember this, VCRs, betas, VHS were just coming up. And everybody oddly needed help hooking them up to their TVs. I mean, it was one cable. I don't know why there was so much help needed, but there was. And so I can't remember how much I would charge, but I made good money hooking up VCRs. And what I found in doing that is if I did it too quickly, nobody would pay me much. So what I would do is I wouldn't just hook up the VCR. I would hook up the one cable and then I would unhook it. And I'd sit there and I'd turn it and I'd like hook it back up and I'd unhook it and I'd hook it back up. And I remember realizing that I could make a lot more money if I just took a little bit more time. But that led to half a dozen things that were in retail, right? Just different businesses, from all the ones you'd expect all the way to starting companies later in high school and then in college.
Wow, that's fascinating, because so much of our job today, we're paid to make things that are complicated more simple. And in that case, you're actually taking something that was simple to you and trying to make it more complicated to make more money.
Yes, that might not be the model for anyone else to follow, but clearly as a 9-year-old, I think I found something that worked for me in that.
Well, and then sort of fast forward, I mean, as I mentioned at the top, the first chief sustainability officer at Walmart. I can't even imagine, I mean, knowing you probably made it happen like this, but I can't even imagine what it must have been like to both propose that idea and then occupy that chair. Will you share a little bit about what you learned in that role?
Gosh, sure. And it wasn't, that sustainability in Walmart changed my career forever. But it wasn't a role that I proposed or was looking for. It was a role that found me. And I think this happens a lot in careers where things that you wouldn't necessarily think are going to make sense to go do turn out to be the best things, right, that can happen to us. I was running global strategy for Walmart at the time. Sustainability was one of 20 things on my plate, including, do we lease stores? Do we buy stores? Are we a global company? Are we a multinational company? The range of things that you would think about. And sustainability was one of 20 things that popped up. And it was the first time that I was working for the CEO in both roles, Lee Scott, and the first time that he asked me to lead sustainability, I turned him down. I checked with mentors and they all said, Andy, you should go run neighborhood markets. You need a P&L. If you're running strategy, go get a P&L. No one said you should go do corporate social responsibility. So the third time that Lee asked, and the third time that I said, I don't think that's a good idea for me, we were sitting on an airplane. He looked over his bifocals. He was doing the crossword puzzle.
Okay.
And he said, we're so young to think we know what's best for us. And I remember going back home after the store trip to my wife, Deborah, and said, he's going to fire me unless I take the job. Maybe I should just do it. She said, you love this, go do it. And he did know, he was right. And he did know better. And it was one of the best things that could have happened. And it was fantastic.
Wow. And what a great story, and what a seminal moment in terms of when people are sort of asking and telling at the same time. And sort of, we talk a lot at Microsoft about sort of our fixed, or confronting our own fixed mindset. I mean, I think I would have had that same impression, just like, is this like you're built to sort of like want a P&L and be closest to where the business is happening. And so you could see how both you thought it wasn't quite that, but then hearing him ask for the third time, how important that was.
Yes. When I got my P&L after sustainability, I got to go run private brands for food. So, eventually, it happens in time, but the things that sometimes come up that are unexpected, I think are always important.
Well, that actually, is sort of the perfect segue into what I wanted to ask you about next, which is, you talked about, how you went to private brands, but maybe talk about how that experience in sustainability, informed then private brands, but then ultimately to the founding of Trove.
There's so many lessons at large companies where the leadership at Walmart is just fantastic. And so to learn in that environment that informs how to start and build a smaller growing company is hard to overstate, right? Significant. And there were a lot of things that I took from my Walmart time of just the leadership itself. There were also many things I took from inside retail that told me that resale, right, that selling an item multiple times is going to be not just a thing, but a really important and consequential thing that it'll become as normal as anything that we think about today, like e-commerce. I feel like there were many moments at Walmart where I was allowed to be in the room at a time where really what people were doing around me was developing me. And they were exposing me to things that I might not have gotten unless they had said, go ahead and stay, like sitting in someone's office when a call comes in, and they allow you to stay and be kind of fly on the wall and hear what the conversation is. Or, early on when I was leading strategy, to be able to sit, this is early in Walmart's history, but someone's got to run the slides. And to just be able to ask, is it okay if I stick around and sit in the board meeting and run the slides? And to be able to be in the room and have that exposure, I think the learning's incredible. And really what I've taken away in building a company is to provide that exposure for people, because it allows people to see things that they might not be in the midst of right now, but then to kind of stretch into and to do more and have context and to do better work. And so I think that was one of many takeaways that's been instructive.
Yeah. And I mean, I think what you just said, Andy, really articulates one of the things that's been on my mind, especially lately, for people who are newer in career and sort of the running the slides, or being just listening, like being in the room where it happened, to quote from Hamilton. I worry about I'm fully, I've embraced hybrid and all that. But I worry about those opportunities of being able to be in the room where executives are making that decision, because I think that is a big piece of each of our own development. And clearly, just looking at some of the notes that the team put together for me, I mean, you won Walmart's highest accolade with Sam Walton Entrepreneur of the Year Award, and you were awarded the Outstanding Retail Leadership and Entrepreneurial Spirit. So you obviously absorbed a lot in those contexts, but then gave back a lot as you were having those lessons come to you. So now we're gonna move a little bit. That part of the reason I was excited to join the board of Trove was I listened to you on a podcast talk about exactly sort of what you just teed up, which is, I believe that you said you believe the future retailers will be paid and incented as much to have customers bring things back to stores or back to their websites as they get to buy things. And that was so compelling as someone who's put a lot of stuff into the world. Tell us, like, how did Trove, do you wake up one morning and say, I want to start a re-commerce platform? how did you've worked with sort of storied brands from P&G to Walmart, and now so how did you start?
It is my belief. Like, I've never seen these. I rarely see these like shower moments where someone says, "Oh, it's left. This is like the future." What I've experienced more is that there are indications of things, and then there are more indications of those things, and more and more and more. And over time, they become more robust and they keep building. One of the early ones for me in a store trip that I remember very distinctly back to Walmart was it was back to school season, and Walmart was selling. Do you remember the graphic calculators that we grew up with that had like the Texas Instruments ones? And one of the things that, like, in retail comp sales, I remember sitting at the photo. We had done this store tour, walked the perimeter, and we were sitting with a photo department manager, and we were flipping through because it's when people had books. He was looking at the comp sales on graphic calculators, small town in Missouri, and they were flat. And I remember thinking, what if all the high schoolers have graphic calculators in this small town, and they are just handing them on to the next people who need them? Like, what is the moment for a company that serves customers, not sells new things, but serves customers, where the job of Walmart might be to help people move the calculators from one person to another, right? And so it was a moment of just wondering if our metrics might not be serving kind of the goal that we have. And then as I moved beyond there, as we talked about in sustainability, and you realize that last year, on average, we bought 64 things, right? Pieces of apparel, fashion. In the 1980s, 12. So we've gone from 12 to 64. And then there's another question, just in the world with greenhouse gas, fashion will be 20+% of the greenhouse gas footprint in 2050. And so there is, for all the progress we've made on climate, where renewables have been incredible, like we have, and right now we're not talking about 4 degrees of global warming, we're talking about between 1.5 degrees and 2.5 degrees. And so the industry that is not advancing at the right pace is fashion. We're going backward. It's getting worse. And so it is just a necessity that we get more use, because we're going to keep buying things. We need new models to be able to get new things to us without having them be made new. And that was the insight that said, we've got to find models for getting more use out of what we've made.
Yeah.
And that became the start of Trove.
Wow. So it sounds like it was more sort of an evolution versus, as you say, sort of a shower moment of just observing data, observing where the consumer is, observing what the world and the planet really needs.
Well, and the hard part, I feel like, is not the insight of, that would make a lot more sense, right? If I could buy this shirt used and it was a nicer shirt, and 5 people, like, this shirt could go to more dinners per shirt, right? More ski trips per jacket. That idea is not that new. The hard part is making it a reality.
Yeah.
And the journey of the starts and stops and the insights and the things that work, and then abandoning the things that don't work. That journey is the hard work. And I think over the last 10 years, there was a pretty big moment when Trove started focusing on brands. So you mentioned Patagonia, Lululemon, Levi's. There was a moment where I and the company realized that to really do this right, it would be the way that we interact now. So we shop at Lululemon, we shop at Levi's, right? And so as we interact with these brands, how do those brands just make it as easy to buy the item used that we can now access if we couldn't afford Lululemon? How do those brands make it just as easy to get the pre-loved Lululemon item, not the new one? How do you make it just as easy to get the worn wear, the pre-owned Patagonia jacket? And when that happens, it will become natural. Can I just bring the jacket right back to a store? And so the realization was, if we can support brands and make it easy for brands, brands will do this. And when brands can make more money by selling an item not once, but twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, brands will win. And so if 2 people are competing and one is selling the item 1 time and then not monetizing everything after it, company B is selling the item 4 to 5 times, company B is going to win. And so Trove's job became, how do we provide the technology to brands so they can make more money by selling items more times? And we can all live in a world where we have less new production with access to nicer things.
I mean, I was about to sort of ask you to explain re-commerce, because I think actually still people understand e-commerce, but re-commerce requires some explanation.
Yes.
But before you even go there, I just want to really put a punctuation point on what you said, because one of the reasons I think Trove is so compelling is that there are other ways in which you can buy. People have been going thrift shopping. Teenagers, it's such a resurgence. To buy gently used items, but I think consumers want relationships with brands, and so to make sure that the brands are part of this conversation and creating this circular economy, like the Lulas of the world, versus going off to some other website. I think that's what's really incredibly special and unique about Trove's value.
Yes. I think over time, at scale, we've moved away from that. So we had the moment where I remember going to a small shoe store and my first pair of Birkenstocks, and the owner of the store, I remember him saying, "You think you want to just take them home, and if you actually turn out that you really like them, just come back and pay me." Right. And that was like a relationship that you would not find in modern retail, which is a very transactional in scale. And the transactional nature of retail right now allows us to access far more items and to have a better quality of life. Like, we've done an amazing amount of good in the last 50 years. The next 50 years won't move back to the Birkenstock example. I believe it will move forward, that we will keep the scale and the nature of the transactions and the access to things, but the relationship will come back in as it'll be right? So we'll keep the nature of access to products, and we'll do it in a way where once I get that pair of Birkenstocks from that retailer, they will never lose touch with me, because they will say, "Bring those back. And what are you looking for now? And are you still like," it won't just be a transaction and I'm done, because that's really expensive. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just had the best experience trading in some of my older Lululemon pants in my local Corte Madera store, and it was fun because I brought them in.
You're always so
they were
worried,
like,
right?
and made space in my drawer where I keep my workout pants to buy new ones. So I felt good, kind of making that space. The sales associate was thrilled. Like, she's like, "Oh, we love this program. It brings our customers back in. We get to have a conversation about how they, evolve to new fits and colors." And then I had, my gift card. So it felt so good as a consumer to have that experience and be participating in something that was more than just like, "Oh gosh, what am I going to do with these next?" And they're going to sit in my hallway until I figure out where to put them away. And I think the surprise and the delight was actually how excited the Lululemon associate was, and I had the same experience when I did it at REI. Like, it's actually fun.
That's awesome.
How they want to participate in this. So break down sort of like we've talked about, I think, at a high level, but what is re-commerce?
The ability to the way I think about it is, I think about ski trips per jacket. Okay. Re-commerce is the commerce angle that allows us to get more value out of the things that we've made. Yeah. And so in the commerce element, it is selling an item multiple times, because we do not, in the world we live in today, the average number of wears of a garment is 3, right? So we just, items could be worn dozens, hundreds of times, and we wear them 3. So re-commerce is just using a commerce model to then bring that back and resell it. And in doing that, obviously the nicer pieces hold on to more of their value.
Yeah.
Pre-certified automotive is an obvious model. Mobile phones is another one. Being able to drive your 3-year-old Lexus back on the lot, and they're going to take that back. They're going to put you in this year's Lexus. Great for Lexus. And they're going to bring a new customer in who might have been a Honda or Toyota customer who can now afford their first Lexus and introduce them to the brand. And that person's going to meet Lexus not at a used car lot, but they're going to meet Lexus on Lexus's terms and in Lexus's brand with their service. And I think it's one of the huge opportunities for any brand is to keep people at the level of their brand, right? To enhance their brand as they bring in first-time customers.
Yeah, and especially, with sort of all the adages, I mean, looking at, some of the stats in terms of how re-commerce is appealing to, your most loyal customers, improving, like the terrible customer acquisition costs that so many brands are facing. But and we have the old adage of it's twice as expensive to acquire a new customer than to keep an existing one. Like you're just seeing a lot of sort of the most loyal customers come back in a higher frequency, which is
we see on average double.
I mean,
right, we see a doubling of by offering this basically one extra trip, one extra occasion, one extra shop. And it's because you're being kept, right? Like there's a relationship and you're being kept in the product, and through the product, you're being kept close to the brand. Right. And then as a new customer coming in, and you mentioned thrifting, right? With Gen Zs, it's got all the elements. Right now, the contradiction is I want to shop in a more sustainable way, yet I want 2-day shipping, right? I want to find something. I want the thrill of the hunt, but I want it to be easy. It's almost like we want to hunt for our dinner, but we kind of want to do it in a game preserve where it's stocked, right? And then we want a chef to then prepare it. And fine, it's a contradiction, but the brands that are able to break through the contradictions will gain the market share of the Gen Z and the next generation customers. And resale, by offering a brand that newer, younger customers aspire to, that's affordable and that is not a net new production in the world, is an incredible recipe, right, for bringing in a next generation customer. So for all those reasons, we right now see our belief is that this will be 30% of retail. So 1 out of 3 items will come from someone else. Wow. And for a brand to watch that happen to the items that they've designed and produced, but not participate in that would be ridiculous. Just like e-commerce, brands aren't going to sit back and watch e-commerce happen outside their purview, their job, right? So re-commerce will not only happen as it's happening, and it will be reinforced. The more brands that do this, like your Lululemon experience, the more we will go, well, we could do it at Lululemon. Why can't we do it here?
Right.
So it'll become an expectation.
So so it will become an expectation. I couldn't agree more. And brands have to be part of the experience. They can't be outside of the experience or let someone else disintermediate them.
Right.
Let's just assume that happens. Where does this go? I mean, what is as you blur your eyes? You're such a, I know you love to live in the future. Like, what will this look like in, I don't know, 3 to 5 years?
We will, and it might be like, maybe it's probably in the 5-year mark, like the longer term when we squint our eyes. My sense is we'll have access to nicer things. The closet will look very different. So the closet of the future will rotate more. Mm-hmm. Right now, our closets are fairly stagnant. Yeah. And of our closets, we use 10% of them. 90% of them it's dead inventory to us. We bought it. It's too nice to do anything with, but we don't really want to get rid of it because maybe we'll want it later. What a ridiculous use of our homes and our space and the fun of fashion. So closets will be smaller. They will be much more, they'll have more used pieces in it. They'll have some rental pieces in it, and they'll change over far faster. And the brands that produce items that are not only more durable, because for the most part, most of fashion today is durable. It's just not desirable after the first purchase. So the brands that produce items that have the most desirability for the second, third, and fourth purchase are best positioned for the world we're moving into. So those brands will have a larger market share. They will occupy more of our closets. They will get paid for more of, they'll get paid for more of what they do, which is design pieces that really add value in the world and that we feel good wearing. And ultimately, 70% of the footprint of an item is in the production.
Yeah.
So as we move to a third of that not needing to be new production, we will get far more value out of the things that we've already made. And all of the conversation right now to make items less bad, there's no amount of math to take 100 billion items each year and make them less bad enough to matter. We've got to get more use out of them. So those things will happen. We will see things like in stores and online, no distinction between new and used.
Yeah.
You'll be shopping for the item. There'll be some new items. There might be a used item. Used items will be used for merchandising, right? They will be used for bringing people in for a price point. They'll be used in all kinds of ways. And trade-in will be so easy. There'll be an expectation that when you buy from Patagonia, of course you can bring it back. The idea of these snow tires at Nordstrom, right? That like you can do a return. That was the Nordstrom way from before, where it's like, wow, that was today, being able to return an item is just expected. What it is becoming now is not only can I return an item if it doesn't work, can I bring it back when I'm no longer wearing it? That will become the next Nordstrom way, right? The next promise, and that will become table stakes.
Gosh, I love it. And the only thing I didn't like of what you said is that it's probably 5 years from now, because the thought of, frankly, having a closet that rotates more, that is more shared, and that just actually is, more traded. It feels more authentic. So,
can I tell you what I love about it? And I'm not someone who decides that because I'm doing this space, everything should be used, right? I'm someone who is more, I'll be a normal customer and I'll experience the world in the way that I experience. But one thing that have happened is that in this space, I don't know why, like I get to wear Tom Ford now because I can find used Tom Ford. I had never experienced the quality of a Tom Ford shirt. I love them, turns out. Whatever the brands, whatever the products are, as people start to experiencing, I've yet to meet the person who doesn't like nicer things for less money. The more that it becomes something that you can experience nicer things and enjoy those and then be able to hand them back easily and get more, get money out of and be able to find the next thing. So it just, as life changes, you don't ever go backwards from the things that just add value.
Right. And give you more flexibility and actually are better for the planet. Like, the ambition of what you shared, 30% will be re-commerce, these smaller, more flexible, I think more personal, and probably more distributed in some ways. Your Tom Ford example, closets. I mean, it's almost a democratization in a way, and access to categories that many people wouldn't have access to previously.
Think about the supply chain, right? The supply chain looks very different. The supply chain, if it becomes, at 30%, the supply chain is, and we see it already with partners of ours like REI. It turns out that the items that people have in their closets tend to be the ones in Manhattan Beach, California, that are the ones that other people in Manhattan Beach want to buy.
Totally.
And so we end up with a very different looking supply chain of where bikes sit and where they're being brought back and where they're being resold. And that is, I think that is where the excitement of technology comes in. This entire future depends on different technology with far more integration and far more awareness. And that is the investments to be made right now. There are different technologies, different financing models, different branding. I mean, that's the fun, right, of creating what is next.
Absolutely. And for Trove to be sort of the ingredient and the enabler of that future for all these amazing brands that we love. Okay, so I'm trying something kind of new on this, which in season three, which are my fun five, and so I know they'll be fun with you. So I'm going to ask you some random weird questions before we kind of wrap up. Your favorite superhero?
This one would be pretty boring. Because I don't. Okay, Spider-Man probably, which is
Not
such a
boring.
boring, almost
That's
trite.
not boring. Who doesn't like fighting? Okay. Aside from Trove, which is a hard one to top, what's your best invention ever?
I said I'm geeking out a bit. DNA,
Oh,
probably for sustaining life and fighting entropy with
wow.
complexity of life.
Wow. Just that. Okay. And I think you might be in it, but although some days it might not feel like it, but what would be your dream job and why?
I am in it, and I feel like I'm always in it. Dream job. One thing I really enjoy, I would like to spend more time on now, because maybe I'll call it a job. I love music. I like playing guitar, and I like doing it with other people. There's something distinct about music for me that is a dream way to spend time, which is, and I don't know, I'm not talented enough to do it to earn. I would not want to put my family in jeopardy to try to earn money, given my talent level there. But there's just something amazing about the impromptu-ness, right? The kind of the flow and the communication that happens in music.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And
Amazing.
I'm with a musician who he wishes he could be a musician, so he became a doctor. And I think watching him perform, there is something that music does, if you have any ability to perform it, that is transformative for your whole psyche and frankly for the people around you. Well, Andy, I just want to kind of close out where we started, which is you are amazing. Your story is incredible. And sort of the guts that you've had to create, as you said, this whole new market, which will be 30% of retail at some point. But also, I was just jotting down the notes. I mean, the fact that 20% of fashion, you said 20% is creating contribution to the greenhouse gas rising. Is that correct?
Yes. So it's 20% of our greenhouse gas budget.
Wow.
In the year 2050. And today it's larger than all airline transportation and ships, maritime. So
Wow.
It is significant. What's hard about it is it's a shirt, right? How bad could a shirt be?
Right.
When you times something times, a billion items, pretty significant. And I think that's what's hard to really keep in front of us. So it is a really important space to invent these new models.
Wow. Thank you for spending the time with all of us.
Oh my gosh, thank
every
you.
time I talk to you, I learn more and I'm more inspired, and I know that our audience will be too. So huge thank you.
Back at you, and thank you.
For all of you out there listening and tuning in, we love your comments. We love that you're tuning in, and I know you will have been as inspired as I am, and we can't wait to hear more. And please go check out Trove. If you work for a brand, go check them out. Try a trade in at REI or Lululemon or Patagonia. Holiday season is coming. Make it your first shot to buy something that was slightly gently used or slightly worn. I bet they'll love it. So, Andy, thanks again, and thanks to all of you.
Thank you.